everybody. 3 quick notes about methods. I think you know this vocabulary already, but the point of this slide is just to let you know that you need to know this vocabulary. So here's a method called SumUpTo. This is the method name. This method returns something, and the type of thing it returns is an integer, which you can see here. Where the returning actually happens is down here at the end. This entire line is called the return statement. It's okay for your method to have more than one return statement. The thing after the word return is the value that actually gets returned. So it's called the return value. Okay, so we've got return type, return statement, and return value. This entire first line of the method is called the method signature. That's a very important one to know. The inputs that the method accepts are called parameters. And just like when you declare any type of variable, you have a data type and a name. So this would be the parameter type and the parameter name. And of course, you can have multiple parameters. Finally, the part inside the curly braces is called the method body. Okay, so if all of these I think are pretty frequently used. I will use them all the time. Other people use them all the time. So if you don't know them, maybe let me know, and I can organize some practice. I think it shouldn't be too hard to pick them up if it's not vocabulary that you regularly use. Okay, another thing that you probably know already, but there will be one little extra bit. When you're calling methods, when you're running methods, you have to check to make sure that the values that you're providing match the parameter values it's expecting. So here, this method 1 takes a single parameter that should be an int, but when I call method 1, I am providing it with 2 arguments. That word argument usually refers to the value that you pass into a parameter. So this is a parameter. These over here are arguments. So they don't match. I have this extra string coming from nowhere. And then you can also check the return type. So here in method 1, the return type is double, but I can see in method 1, whatever it returns is going to get assigned to this variable on the left, which is a string, and those don't match because method 1 returns a double, but you can't assign that to the string. Okay, so the rest of the rest of these you can probably look through and figure out on your own what's going wrong. The last one I just wanted to point out is sometimes you'll have to kind of infer what the return type should be based on how the method is used. So if you didn't see method 4 over here, if I just showed you this and I said if method 4 hi whatever, and I asked you what should the return type of method 4 be, hopefully you would say Boolean, because we know that whatever is inside an if statement has to evaluate to be true or false. So if this code is going to work, that means method 4 needs to return a value that's true or false. So I might have you do some inferring of return types like that. Okay, finally, this is the one that most students don't know coming out of Intro Java. Let's take a look at this code. So it's called getPlay. I give it an int, and it returns a string. So here we say if the input is 0, we'll return rock. If the input's 1, we'll return paper. If the input's 2, we'll return scissors. So clearly we are playing rock, paper, scissors. It is okay that there are no curly braces. Hopefully you read the notes from problem set 2. If you only have a single line that's supposed to be the body of your if statement, you don't need curly braces. Curly braces define a block of code for the situation when you want all of those lines to execute. But if I just have a single line here, that's totally fine. It is also totally fine that I have 3 separate return statements. As soon as execution hits one of these return statements, it'll exit right away, so it won't keep going to the other return statements. The problem here is that there are values that could get passed as an input where the computer wouldn't know what to do. It wouldn't actually ever reach any of these return statements. For example, if we ran getPlay with an input of 3. If we tried to run getPlay with an input of 3, each of these if statements is false, it would have reached the end of the method, but it still wouldn't know what it needs to return. And this return type string here is us telling the method that it needs to return a string. And so that's why this method won't actually compile. There will be a compile time error. We couldn't get as far as actually running it. So some solutions might be you could make a default value. So you could say if num is 0, return rock. If num is 1, return paper. and then delete this if statement and just say, if it's not 0 or 1, then just return scissors no matter what. But it has to be guaranteed that no matter what the input is, it reaches some return statement in the method. Otherwise, the method won't compile. Okay, last thing, the difference between returning things and displaying things. So here I have a method with a void return type, which means it doesn't return anything. It's called display n times. I take a number n and a string str, and it looks like I'm looping n times and displaying, and actually printing, so displaying the string, and then a blank line at the end. This is very, very similar, except this one returns a string, and there are no print statements inside. But I have answer initializes as the empty string here, and then I loop n times, and I add the input string over and over and over again into the answer. So that means I'm sort of adding to the end of the string, and then I return the string at the end. So it would be totally okay to put repeat n times inside a system.out.println, because repeat n times returns a string, and then that string that gets returned will get printed by the print statement. It would not be okay to put display n times inside a print statement, because display n times does its own printing. It's a void return type, so it doesn't return anything. In particular, it doesn't return a string. And system.out.println is expecting a string so that it knows what to print. So this would not be okay, and that's going to show up in the problem set, and it will probably also show up from time to time in your regular programming. Okay, good luck on the problem set.